Part 1 explained. Whispers in the dark 700 words in the sprawling reaches of the galaxy. Countless wars had come and gone. Empires rose and fell, star systems blinked out in fire and ash, and entire species vanished seemingly overnight. Curiously, few ever questioned why. The official explanations were always clean and vague: political unrest, civil collapse, entropy, isolation. But beneath the polished surface of galactic records, rumors circulated. Whispers passed from one diplomat to another, murmured between captains in the quiet of deep space. They all pointed toward a single source: humanity. At the heart of this suspicion stood Ambassador Trellick, junior envoy of the Valari Confederacy. He had built his career on logic, structure, and strict adherence to protocol. That made what happened during the diplomatic gala on Varel Station all the more unsettling. It began innocently: too much drink, a half-forgotten corridor, a door that shouldn't have been open. Trellick stumbled into a private terminal reserved for high-clearance council members. What he saw on that screen would haunt him for the rest of his life. Flashes of video and declassified battlefield footage played before him. He saw humans fighting, not like soldiers, but like possessed creatures. One clip showed a human dragging his bleeding body across a minefield, using his own limbs to mark safe paths for his unit. An enemy force 5 times their number, calling out jokes mid-battle while landing perfect shots. They didn't just survive the chaos, they thrived in it. Trellick saw entire alien legions rooted by mere dozens of human fighters. He watched hardened insectoid warriors twice the size and strength of their human opponents break and flee as a single Terran screamed, "Come and get me!" Into the comes, blood-soaked and smiling. Some files were even older. Histories of Earth's own wars before they made contact with the stars. Names like Stalingrad, Fallujah, and some meant nothing to Trellick, but the patterns were the same. Relentless resilience, brutal ingenuity, an almost joyful recklessness in the face of impossible odds. And worst of all, the videos weren't recent. Many were decades or even centuries old. They had been this dangerous before gaining access to galactic technology. He tried backing out, tried to report what he'd seen. Instantly, within hours, his diplomatic credentials were suspended. His superiors refused to acknowledge the breach. The Valari government reassigned him to a non-critical post on a backwater mining colony. A polite way of saying, shut up or disappear. That's when it hit him. This wasn't just fear. This was a cover dash up somehow across species and borders. The galaxy had silently agreed to suppress the truth about humanity. Not out of malice, but out of fear. Humanity didn't conquer the stars with fleets or firepower. They didn't need to. They made everyone else afraid to try. Over the following weeks, Trellick spoke cautiously with other diplomats, military personnel, and data analysts. And bit by a bit, he learned he wasn't alone. There were others who'd seen glimpses of the truth battle reports scrubbed of human names. Censored footage, classified encounters where ships vanished without explanation. One phrase kept popping up across these conversations, barely above a whisper. They don't fight like us. Trellick came to a chilling realization. Humans weren't feared because of their weapons or even their military prowess. They were feared because they broke the rules. Where other species calculated risk, humans charged in. Where others retreated to save themselves, humans sacrificed themselves to save others. No algorithm could predict them. No doctrine could explain them. And worst of all, no one could stop them. The galaxy, in its quiet terror, had decided it was better to pretend Earth was just another death world. It's just another primitive species. Because admitting the truth meant acknowledging that beneath the surface of this civilized galaxy lived an apex predator in disguise. And so, the files were buried, the names erased. The whispers continued, but the question remained. What would happen when humanity stopped hiding? Part 2 explained. The incident on Cask Prime, 700 words. The world of Cask Prime was supposed to be a textbook operation. A local rebellion had flared up, threatening the economic interests of the Valari Confederacy and its trade partners. Was Custom, the galactic peacekeeping coalition made up of several major powers, including the Valari June and Vornik launched a joint military intervention. It was seen as a minor flare-up, a mop-up job. It's an opportunity for younger officers to gain field experience. Command expected light resistance from a ragtag militia. They sent in a peacekeeping force, 3,000 strong armored infantry. Orbital support, surveillance drones, and 2 patrol cruisers. The mission was clear: pacify the rebels, establish control, stabilize the planetary government. But no one expected the humans, unbeknownst to command. The rebels on Cask Prime had hired a small group of human mercenaries. Just 6 of them. 6 Terrans with no heavy armor, outdated equipment, and barely any official registration. A mercenary squad that called themselves Black Ember. From the first moment, things went wrong. Day 1. A forward operating base, secure, fortified, and well defended, suddenly went silent. Drones sent to investigate found the base intact, but completely abandoned. Later, video logs revealed the entire unit had been neutralized in under 15 minutes. No sign of explosives, no large-scale battle, just 6 ghost-like blurs moving through. Smoke, disabling communications, and systematically incapacitating soldiers. The attackers didn't kill unless they had to. They left survivors frightened, shaken, broken. Day 2, intercepted communications hinted at an invisible unit that came from the trees. Panic began to spread among the coalition troops. Officers dismissed the rumors as battlefield hysteria. Day 3, 2 Valari warships disappeared from orbit. Hours later, they were found in silent orbit on the planet's dark side, engines offline. AI cores fried, and crew members unconscious or missing. No signs of battle. No damage to the hulls. Coalition command was forced to acknowledge this was more than a local rebellion. Day 5. Half the southern hemisphere was under rebel control. Entire divisions refused to deploy to certain zones after hearing stories of a Terran trap that turned a full Vornak battalion into screaming wrecks, using nothing more than sound loops. Blinking lights and false distress signals of the humans had hacked into the coalition's local communication grid and used it as psychological warfare broadcasting. Audio of their own screams, distorted voices, and eerie human laughter into enemy helmets. Surveillance drones captured footage of Sergeant Vale, the human squad leader. In one video, he was seen dragging a wounded Vornak soldier supposedly to safety. But instead, he planted him as bait near an ammo dump, waiting in silence. When a Serchandric recovery team arrived, he detonated EMP charges and personally took down the squad using scavenged enemy weapons. He looked directly into the drone afterward and smiled. This wasn't combat, it was a message. The human mercs weren't just effective. They were surgical, unpredictable, creative. They studied their enemies, turned their protocols against them, and weaponized fear itself. High Admiral Krex of the June fleet was among the first to grasp the magnitude of the threat. Watching the footage, he remarked to his staff, "If these humans fight this hard for a contract, what happens when they fight for something they love?" That chilling question spread fast. By day 7, the peacekeeping coalition voted to retreat from Cask Prime, an unprecedented decision. The official reports cited unstable atmospheric conditions and risk to diplomatic stability. But every commander present knew the truth: they were outclassed by 6 Terrans. The fallout was massive. Cask Prime's rebellion succeeded. The rebel government gained legitimacy. And across the galaxy, private military contractors began quietly seeking Terran fighters, but the bigger shock was internal. Why did 6 humans outperform thousands of elite soldiers? What made them so dangerous? Some chalked it up to biology Deathworld adaptations, faster reflexes, or pain tolerance. Blamed it on Earth's violent history. But none of that explained how they hijacked surveillance grids. They built traps from scrap and read enemy movements like books. The truth was far simpler and far scarier. Humans learn fast, and they don't play fair. On Cask Prime, they weren't just fighting to win. They were there to teach a lesson. You might have numbers, tech, and ships, but if you underestimate a human with a mission, you don't get a second chance. The message was received loud and clear. Part 3 explained. The locked files of Soul, 700 words. Dr. Enrovu was no warrior. A Zellery data analyst working deep within the Galactic Archive network, she had spent most of her life sorting through ancient records, classifying species, and cross-referencing war data for historical preservation. Her passion lay in facts, not fables. So when she came across inconsistencies in Earth's military records, glaring, deliberate gaps, her curiosity was piqued. Every major species in the Galactic Alliance had their military history cataloged. In excruciating detail, entire wars were dissected to the minute. Troop movements, political motives, post-battle analysis. But when it came to humans, something was wrong. Too many redactions, battles with no names, conflicts that ended without explanation. There were entire military engagements with casualty counts and outcomes, but no participants listed. The deeper Enrovu dug, the more she found herself tangled in a knot of obfuscation and classified barriers. It was as if the galaxy had deliberately erased the details of humanity's wars. She submitted formal requests for decryption access. Rejected. She tried using backdoor admin tools. Blocked. It took weeks of quiet work and favors pulled from old friends. Enrovu gained limited access to what was known as the locked files of Sala restricted dataset. Compiled from Earth's early centuries before joining the galactic community, what she discovered defied every model of warfare known to her people. Earth's history was soaked in blood, not in brief periods of violence, but centuries of conflict. Humans had fought wars over land, water, airspace, faith, language, and ideas. The list of earthbound wars stretched for thousands of years. Kingdoms rose and collapsed. Nations devoured one another. At one point, Earth had faced not just one war, but two global conflicts within 3 decades: World War I and World War II. Each deadlier than anything recorded in pre-FTL alien history. But it wasn't the scale of violence that terrified her, it was the pattern. Each war made them better. They learned, adapted, evolved. Where other species might develop new weapons over centuries, humans innovated within years, sometimes months. After discovering flight, they created fighter planes. Within a generation, once satellites went up, precision-guided missiles followed almost immediately. With the rise of computers came digital warfare. Humans crippled entire infrastructures from behind keyboards. She found logs detailing Earth's use of psychological warfare, broadcasting enemy propaganda to sow confusion, sending fake transmissions, to manipulate responses, even creating terrifying symbols like skulls and blood-red flags to induce fear. One human military had a motto: let them hate so long as they fear. Even more disturbing, humans studied not just their enemies but themselves. Countless military academies, tactical training centers, and war simulations taught humans to anticipate not just enemy movements, but how the enemy would anticipate them back. It was war inside war. Chess played at 4 levels. By the time they reached the stars, humans were masters of conflict, not just in brute strength, but in mind and spirit. Enrovu uncovered dossiers about the siege of Titan's Reach, where human forces held a mining colony against a fleet 10 times their size by using terrain traps, fake withdrawal tactics, and convincing an enemy AI that the system had collapsed into a gravity well. There were also mentions of an event known only as the Black Fog Protocol, which humans reportedly triggered panic among an enemy species by seeding their own soldiers behind enemy lines for months, masquerading as civilians, gathering intelligence, planting misinformation, then activating all at once. But perhaps the most haunting discovery of all came in cultural data, songs, stories, myths. Unlike other species whose soldiers were mourned, humans celebrated their fallen. They wrote ballads about last stands, erected monuments to suicidal charges, created movies that glorified dying to save your friends. Didn't just accept loss, they worshipped sacrifice. This wasn't just a warrior species. It was a culture, forged by fire, one that viewed death not as failure, but his legacy. When Dr. Enravu tried to submit her findings to the Central Council, the system responded with a warning: access breach detected. Your clearance level has been flagged. Archive AI protocol engaged. Cease inquiry. Her terminal shut down. Her credentials were revoked. And soon after, she received a polite but firm reassignment. An observational post on a quiet moon with no strategic value, just like Ambassador Trellick. She had seen too much, and the galaxy had no intention of letting the truth spread. Because if everyone knew what Enravu now understood, the younger species realized that beneath the smiles and diplomacy, humans carried the instincts of predators. And the experience of 1,000 wars, the balance of galactic power would collapse overnight, so the truth was hidden, filed, buried, locked again. Part 4 explained. The day the Alliance attacked Earth, 700 words, fear leads to foolish decisions. After decades of rumors, secret files, and unnerving battlefield reports, the Galactic Alliance had had enough. Humanity was becoming too influential, too unpredictable. Despite being a relatively young spacefaring species, Earth had expanded its reach in science, trade, and most disturbingly mercenary warfare. Human soldiers, even in small groups, were changing the outcome of conflicts across the galaxy. The Council's consensus was clear: disarm Earth before it's too late. They framed the plan as a peacekeeping operation. Officially, it was called Operation Harmonized Dawn, a diplomatic enforcement mission, meant to ensure technological compliance and prevent any potential threat to galactic unity. But behind closed doors, everyone knew the real goal: neutralize humanity before their shadow grew too long. The Coalition fleet was vast to 1 to 2 species, contributing ships, troops, drones, and orbital weapon platforms. High Admiral Tranvok of the June led the armada. He was confident, overconfident. Earth had no significant fleet, no superweapons, no known planetary defense grid. By all calculations, the mission would be swift and bloodless. The first strikes came fast. Orbital bombardments rained down on Earth's key cities: London, Shanghai, Nairobi, São Paulo, and New Chicago. Energy weapons, vaporized buildings, power grids collapsed. Communications went dark. Earth's surface burned in silence, and that was the first mistake. Assuming that silence meant surrender, because Earth didn't respond immediately. No missiles, no radio transmissions, no war declaration, just stillness. For 3 days, the Alliance fleet orbited the ruins, puzzled. Probes sent to the surface vanished. The atmosphere was thick with interference. Some speculated that Earth's infrastructure had collapsed entirely. And then, on day 4, something stirred. From behind Jupiter's icy moon, Europa, the humans returned fire. They didn't come in waves. They didn't announce themselves. They simply emerged, 24 ships of unknown design, silent and black as void, gliding without visible propulsion. They looked like fragments of night sky come alive. The Alliance scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. These weren't warships in the traditional sense. These were hunters. Every Terran vessel had been cloaked in deep cryo-silence for years. They buried under ice, hiding power signatures, unseen by long-range scans, and they struck with a precision no one expected. Fleet Command Ship Vortaxa was the first to fall, imploded by a gravitic shear bomb the galaxy had never seen before. 10 ships gone in the first hour, no warning, no broadcast. It's just clean, brutal elimination. Human forces boarded enemy cruisers with surgical speed. They didn't destroy the crews. They studied them, disarmed them, recorded their fear. The footage to the remaining fleets comes. Suddenly, the Alliance wasn't fighting ships. They were fighting psychological warfare. On day 5, Admiral Tranvok received a transmission. No face, no threat. Just the same message playing on loop, in perfect galactic standard. You started this. What followed was chaos. Ships turned on each other, mistaking friendly signals for attacks. Command structures crumbled. Entire crews refused to deploy. The presence of humans in the system shattered morale on a molecular level. But it wasn't just the tactics that shocked the Alliance. It was what the humans didn't do. They didn't invade, didn't chase retreating ships. They didn't boast. As quickly as they arrived, they disappeared, leaving only wreckage and silence. The message was clear. Earth didn't need to conquer anyone. They just needed to be left alone. By day 6, the Alliance withdrew, humiliated, shaken. Entire species demanded answers from their governments. The attack had failed. No territory gained. No demands met. And worse, no explanation that could be made public. So they buried it. The Council issued a vague statement. A rogue intelligence within. The fleet had triggered an automated counter-response. Earth was under quarantine, they said, for safety. No one believed it, but no one said otherwise. Because even among the most war-hardened species, one truth had been learned the hard way. Humanity didn't win wars by brute force, they won. With planning, patience, and utter unpredictability, they hid their blades in smiles, buried their weapons under ice. Let you hit first stand, then made sure you never hit again. From that day on, Earth was left untouched, and the galaxy learned what the Council had always known but dared not admit. You never attack a species that's been preparing for war without ever declaring one. Part 5 explained. The real reason they win, 700 words. The failure of the Galactic Alliance's assault on Earth sent shockwaves across the stars. Billions had watched fleets vanish, command ships implode, and veteran soldiers return broken. Rumors filled the void where the truth should have been, but the truth was never meant to be told. In an emergency session, the Galactic Council convened in the secure chambers of Solaris Prime. The leading powers, Jun Valari, Vornok, and Zellery came to one silent conclusion. The war never happened. They reclassified the entire operation as a malfunctioning AI event. All combat logs were scrubbed, wreckage recycled, and every surviving officer sworn to silence under penalty of species-wide embargo. The truth of Earth's impossible retaliation, of its terrifying patience, was buried beneath a web of lies and closed files. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, the whispers only grew louder. What made humanity truly dangerous? Was it their tech, their weapons, their tactics? No, those things made them formidable, but not unbeatable. What made humanity terrifying was something far deeper. A Zellari philosopher general, exiled after questioning the Council's silence, summarized it best in his banned memoir Fragments of the Fireborn. Humans do not fight to survive. They fight to protect something. That makes them unstoppable. It's philosophy, dismissed by the elite, slowly accepted by those who had faced humans in battle and lived. The average galactic soldier fought for orders, for nation, for resources. Some fought for honor, but humans fought for each other not out of duty, but out of choice. A human soldier would crawl through artillery fire to save a friend, not because it was strategic, but because that friend mattered. They would hold the line with broken limbs if it meant protecting a child they didn't know. They would run into certain death if it meant their squad had even a second more to escape. Other species struggled to grasp it. Most followed rigid doctrines, duty above all, honor before life, risk assessment, tactical withdrawal, calculated sacrifices. Humans shattered those rules. They fought irrationally, illogically, and yet it worked. Dr. Enrovu's final report, archived secretly after her reassignment, captured it in a single, chilling sentence. You can predict an army's tactics. You cannot predict the heart of someone who refuses to let a loved one die. This emotional fuel turned them into monsters in battle. Not monsters in cruelty, but in resolve. While other species hesitated, calculated, measured, humans charged. This is why they won wars. Not just on Earth, not just on Cask Prime, but everywhere. They showed up. History revealed a pattern. Every time humans were involved, even as contractors or advisors, their side eventually won. Not always cleanly. It's not without loss, but always with finality. Why? Because humans didn't consider death a failure. They called it sacrifice. They honored the fallen. They even celebrated them in song, story, and statues. That willingness to lay down their lives willingly, joyfully, defiantly terrified species raised on cost-benefit logic. You could kill a human's body, but never their will. And in war, will is everything. That's why every major galactic power, once so eager to dominate Earth, now kept a wide berth, quietly. Borders around Sol were redrawn, not as war zones, but as protected sectors. No-fly zones. Quarantine areas. Out of concern for human unpredictability, the official documentation said. But the real reason? They knew they couldn't win, not against a species that plans for peace, but prepares for hell. Not against a people who laugh in the face of death. Not because they're fearless, but because they've already made peace with what they're willing to die for. Humanity didn't win wars with just weapons. They won with each other, with stubborn loyalty, with the kind of love that made people run toward fire, with sacrifice that didn't make sense to a logic-driven galaxy. So the files were sealed again. Hidden away, story of the failed assault on Earth became a footnote in a report no one read, but still, the galaxy remembered. They remembered the silence after Earth struck back. They remembered the footage of human soldiers smiling through pain, and most of all, remembered the quiet message Earth had sent after the war. You started this, nothing more, because humans didn't need to scream. They just needed you to never try again.